Ayo, it's the Ayo show with your guy Ronny, your girl DJ A.
Could you stop trying to say my name?
Say my name when no one is around you.
DJ A LB, that would be me.
That's her.
We were talking about the 10-year anniversary of the Games documentary album. Yes, I made a lot of you guys feel old just now, because I know I definitely feel old.
2005.
He probably still feel young, because he probably was sipping on Summerback when it came out.
Oh, no.
Anyway,
no, don't do that.
They come out in 2005, January 18th, 2005 to be exact. And the Game just celebrated the 10-year anniversary with a concert. He brought out like Dr. Dre, Snoop, but West Coast, West Coast royalty type of thing, as he should have, because that's what you do. You celebrate things. So, the first thing that we're going to start dealing with this album is Game's career or lack thereof. To me, I know that Ronny says that
prior to the album,
he had mixtapes came out, but we're going to talk about it as a general public type of thing. The general public probably doesn't know that he had mixtapes come out. Because let me tell you why. Because when I remember vividly when this album came out and he did all his interviews, the only thing he always repeated in every interview was he decided to start rapping because he got shot and he was in a little the hospital room and stuff like that. He very rarely mentioned that he had the mixtape. At least most interviews I read or heard for that matter.
Well,
so to me, it was like, dang, came out. He really, regardless if he had the mixtape or not, it did seem like he came out of nowhere.
Let's put 2005 in perspective for all of those people who are so used to blogs and all this that blogs were virtually, as we know it today, non-existent. It was still the ancient radio magazine.
Right. So you can't say, internet. So that's why I say you can't really say back then a career was more of a, people just came out of nowhere. So for him, it was more of a lack thereof a career. Even though he probably had mistakes and he grind, especially because it was a lack of visibility
towards new fans.
Right.
And the internet for the blogs, blogs didn't start popping until like 2007, 2008. So he's 3 years prior to the internet explosion.
Yeah, I remember aLifestyle.com. Shameless plug, I'm sorry.
And yes, and he was one of the last rappers to come out under like a major label push,
but I think that the reason why he came, it seemed like to me that he came out of nowhere was you knew that he was on G Unit,
right?
But at the time, G Unit was just kind of like a East Coast clique.
You know, had like Down South Young Buck at the time there too.
That's still, you could kind of just lump him with the East. You know what I'm saying?
Down South ain't the East. But let you know that.
Okay, before you chest up to me right now.
Oh.
Let me freaking say what I was saying. I'm saying, if we just gonna split the freaking country down the middle, east-west. No south, just down the middle. You on this side of the line, he on that side of the line. Young Buck fell on the right side line, which would be the east.
And you can always cut it down the middle to an equator, the down south, third coast, and north. And you cut it the same way. 4 ways to cut it.
Irrelevant. Anyway, like I said, it was seeming majority of the people in G Unit were 50's friends, Young Buck. Not Young Buck, Tony Yayo and Lloyd Banks. Young Buck. So it just seemed, so you threw this game out there. I was like, what? And then of course, the West Coast wasn't really kind of on top at the time.
And what people don't know, Dr. Dre introduced 52 Game and well, most people don't know that. They don't. You knew that for the general public.
The general public read like magazines, no?
Hey, bro, the general public is, you have to, we're not even going to. Well, really, the Game Dr. Dre kind of issued him, and the best way for the Game to come out at that time was do G Unit, and it worked. The cultural significance of this album, we'll move to next. I feel as though it's one of the best West Coast, not just West Coast, but hip hop albums to ever come out. I feel like that. I do, just simply because of the production and the time period it came out under. It was a lack of West Coast on a real mainstream level. It was no real West Coast star. Yeah, see, it solidified Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, but on a mainstream level, was no one moving units from the West Coast at that point in time. That's what I'm saying.
I don't agree with this being like this great album.
It don't.
But it was a good album. A very good debut album for an artist that, like we said previously, because of the way the game was, it just seemed to just fall out the sky. I will say that. You will never, ever hear me, and you can probably, I love you, Game. Nothing personal against you. You will never hear me put Game and the word great together. It won't ever happen. However, I will agree with the fact that I feel like that it definitely, it helped put the, give some spotlight to the West Coast, because, at the time, most of the albums that were out were either East Coast albums or Southern albums. It wasn't anything really heard, unless you were somebody that lived on the West Coast.
Or Midwest.
We already know that, with West Coast music, when we think, okay, they're not on top, probably over there, they don't really know it, because as a West Coast artist, you can literally sell on the West Coast and be living very comfortably and never have to worry about somebody hitting you.
aYe Mac Dre, aYe 40.
Right. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure to the West Coast, probably to a lot of West Coast artists, when their artists get on top, to them it probably does still seem that, okay, we getting our shine for the rest of the country, but it definitely doesn't probably seem like, oh, we probably been listening to this artist. So I will say that as far as him making more people look to the West for probably artists, especially, I'm pretty sure when he came out doing the numbers that he did, the album doing as well as it did, him having the career that he ended up having, after the album as an A&R, it definitely made A&Rs and labels probably look to the West Coast more for, of course, like anything, who's the next artist, you know what I'm saying? So I will give him that he did shift it in that way. Still never putting great in games together. Not gonna happen.
Great.
It's never gonna happen.
One of my favorite albums.
Cool.
My favorite.
I can't say this.
And we're gonna talk
about don't get me wrong. I want to say, because every time I say something like this, like aYe, my whole Crit saga, people think that it's not a hate thing. I actually really, really enjoyed this album and actually played it a lot. I actually was a senior in college, so this is definitely one of those albums that I did a lot of things I wasn't supposed to do too.
Damn! Shots!
Mama,
shots!
Mama, I love you. I'm sorry.
Man. Look, we're gonna talk about not only Coast Significance, but the other albums that were among that time. And we were looking up these albums that came out in 2005. I was surprised on how many good
I'm going to name
albums.
I'm going to name a few. We're not going. This does not mean that this is all that came out.
This is the albums that stuck out to us when we went through it.
Common B was out.
Common B.
Little Brother the Minstrel Show. The Wayne the Carter 2. Shout out to Sorry for the Way 2. Late Registration. Kanye West. We had The Massacre from 50 Cent.
/ Get Rich or Die Trying, because the movie came out.
From 50 Cent. And then we had The Massacre from 50 Cent.
The Get Rich or Die Trying album, movie. You can't count that out.
I'm trying to move to the next one. TM 101 from Jeezy. We had Harlem Diary of something. It's too long. Harlem Diary. Jim Jones. Day After Twister, Already Platinum.
Slim Thugger.
And what's the game with Mr. L's, aka Joel Santana. So, like I said, as you can see from that list, East Coast.
And I can honestly say.
Okay, just so the Midwest can have something. Nelly had an album out too.
Look, the Midwest got Common and Kanye. Chicago. Midwest.
Yeah, but we're gonna go with Nelly. Let's stop playing. Anyway.
Look.
But I want, the fun Midwest. There you go. Cause he like fun.
Amongst these albums, these really good, some great albums that came out, not easily, but the game really stood apart from these albums. That's hard to do from all these albums that came out, because Carter 2 was, brought Wayne to a certain point. Kanye, Late Registration definitely solidified him as an artist after college dropout. The Massacre was a very big commercial album. TM 101 set Jeezy's legendary path. I still feel like nobody came out like Jeezy ever did. Like, that's just crazy.
But the game,
and the game, but the game stood. I'm saying the game stood amongst all these albums. So it was a great thing in 2005.
So for me, the reason why I give the game his props is because I was a huge at the shirts and everything. huge Dipset fan. So for me to even some of these albums that came out after, I don't know when all of them came out, but for, I'm pretty sure a lot of these albums came out after documentary. But for me to still want to listen to that in addition to a lot of the albums, like for me, everybody have their favorite Kanye West album, and everybody have their least favorite, and Late Registration is always my least. That's just my personal thing. It's always my least favorite. And as far as TN101, it's so crazy. TN101, when it came out, I can't remember what it was about it, but it just didn't sit well with me. It's not that I didn't like it. It's just
on my chest.
I can't deal with him. It's not that I didn't like it, but I was definitely late to the TN101 party. Carter too. I'm from New Orleans. Come on now. Anyway, B actually is one of my favorite Common albums because it was one of those albums that was so many different types of things that went on in B, and I was just loved that it was like, it was good music, so it was cool. But definitely I felt like for you to be an artist and this be your first album, all these albums that we just named, I don't think the Minstrel Show was the first.
No, that wasn't the first Life Wonder album.
Yeah, that was first Life Wonder album, but for you to stand in that realm, we have artists that came out after, for you to stand in that realm as a new artist and be able to keep your album relevant amongst artists that already have a set, fan base. And because even with Jeezy coming out with TN101, he was from Atlanta and he already had this huge, fan base, and huge. He did the Boys in the Hood and all this different stuff. So, you can't really say, okay, well, yeah, that was his first album, but he was a snowman. And everybody knew he was a snowman. It was like everybody in the country knew. You had the t-shirts, they got banned. It was like a big thing. So I felt like, yeah, that's your first, but Game was like the true new artist that, I don't know who he is. He got this nice single. Well, we're going to go with him. You know what I'm saying? So I really gave him that. And definitely, I will say this about the Game's documentary. I will put it, because a lot of people definitely slept on the Minstrel Show. A lot of people. A lot. But the people who haven't slept on the Minstrel Show know that it's a very, 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 very dope album. I don't skip a song on it. But I can sit there and put it hand in hand with that. You know what I'm saying? You can go up, you can go toe to toe with the Minstrel Show. Shout out to Joe Scott, because people don't even understand this.
And another reason why this album stood up amongst so many great albums that year, and really great albums really of hip-hop history to me, is because of the production. The production in itself in this album, it's like you don't get this many great producing, moving parts in one cohesive album that actually sounds good cohesively. Like a lot of times you get a lot of when you get a lot of production from different places, it just sometimes it can veer off to the right or the left. It don't stay consistent. No, but I mean, I said one of. I didn't say the best. See, she always ready to start some shit.
He definitely just said in hip hop history, you definitely use the word great. That's like saying I love you. So don't sit up here and act like I can't love more than one thing. I didn't say great, and I didn't say history. You said
see how
great,
she snuck the black out me
my
for
dude,
no
you
reason?
saying great in history. When you were saying this prior, when we were playing the show and he was talking about production, the whole time I kept saying, so the black album, not the black album. So, okay, so pause.
Hold on, time out.
So what has the better
This is Game's album.
No, what has, you're going to answer this question. You're going to answer this.
All right, go ahead.
You're going to answer this question. What has the better cohesiveness, if that's a word? It probably is. I don't know, but I think it is.
Yeah, it is a word.
So, what has the better cohesiveness? The black album. Production-wise, or the documentary?
Easily the documentary. I'm gonna say that. Cause Change Clothes is like everything doesn't flow.
That's not on the black album.
The Black Album by Jay-Z, Change Clothes is the first single.
It is. I forgot.
And then after that you have the PSA.
I'm sorry.
And you have like Dirt Off Your Shoulder.
I'm rocking with the Rock, and Rock has definitely better cohesiveness.
One story. Like
let me tell you
felt
something.
like it rolled.
We had to do research, and I skipped a lot of songs. If I listen to the Black Album, I'm gonna go play. I'm
gonna skip a few songs on that.
Well, we see.
Say what you want.
We see where we going with this. Continue.
Let's go with the production. The production, like I was saying, was one of the best. What made it one of the best hip hop albums, and it easily stands next to albums produced like Nas's Illmatic. Just a lot of great albums. This is written somewhere.
Pull it up on the phone.
I'm talking about my opinion.
Oh, because you sure saying that like this is written.
This is my definite opinion. Yeah. Like, because Nas Illmatic was produced very, very great, and I feel like his was produced very great. I mean, he had Dr. Dre, he had Havoc from Mobb Deep. He also had Scott Storch on keys on a couple songs. He had Cool and Dre. He had Mark Basin, who was definitely one of the best musicians that touched hip hop a lot of times. Michael Alonzo, I believe that's Mike from, I want to say that rock group. I'm not sure. I don't want to misquote that. Just Blaze, Timbaland, just high tech, produced a lot of Talib Kweli, a lot of underground. If you know underground hip hop, high tech is one of the best producers at it. Eminem produced as well. I mean, Buck Wild. It's just a great produced album. And all of it did have a West Coast flavor.
Okay, you finished?
From top to bottom.
You finished?
Go ahead.
For me,
throw soft.
I'm not about to throw soft. For me, I'm not gonna sit up here. This is what I feel. You can go get, you can have a 20 song album and get 20 of the hottest producers. That is not gonna make me be no. What I didn't like about the Game's first album, and what this is just my personal thing when it comes to first albums of artists. I like to know what your sound is. How many albums Game is in, and I still don't know what Game's sound is. I still don't know, because Game does not. That's the one thing I always be like, just stick with one or two people on your album producing. When you get a lot of different people, yes, you get a cohesive sound. Don't get me wrong. Yes, you get a lot of dope tracks. Yes, you're going to get this big album that sounds so awesome. But a lot of my favorite albums are because it was one producer. And it might be because, hey, I grew up in the Cash Money era where everything was produced by Manny Fresh. So you had a sound. You knew what Cash Money sounded like when Manny Fresh was in it, was their in-house producer. I dig that about artists. That's what made me like YG is my crazy life, because it had... I feel like I know a YG song. I know a YG sound. I know a Kendrick Lamar sound. I know an Ab Soul sound. I know a Schoolboy Q sound. Not taking nothing away from the documentary, but that's, for me, if you had to say, what lacked for you? Yeah, I love the production on there.
All right.
Then you got one of my #1 favorite producers on your album. You are a new artist. I don't know who you are, and you have Just Blaze. I'm going to definitely give you a, Just Blaze gave you a chance. I'm going to give you a chance. But I just felt like it had a West Coast sound. Don't get me wrong. It definitely had a West Coast sound. But I can't say that was Game sound. Like, I know what Game. Every time I listen to a Game album, I'm like, okay.
Well, one reason for that, though, let me just bring this up. Just think about how he came out. He came out under G-Unit. All those people you named had a producer, like a production in-house team. Okay. G-Unit doesn't have a production house team. That's not a good excuse. But Dr. Dre oversaw the project. I'm just letting you know it's not an excuse. It's just what it is.
As an artist.
But why?
How many albums he in now? He still don't have a sound.
Are we talking about documentary right now?
I'm just saying he still ain't got a sound.
With this album, it was a whole lot of moving parts, great songs, but a lot of albums that she named, they come from a team with a production team. When you talk about TD, you have certain producers that live in there and they go by those producers. Game doesn't have that. So guess what? He got the best of the best in hip hop.
But I will do you this one.
It won't happen like that no more.
Illmatic, that ain't a bunch of. It ain't like 8, 10, 9 producers.
It's only 9 songs. And no one producer produced more than one song on Illmatic. Everybody produced. That's what he's talking about.
This is what I'm saying.
9 songs, 9 different producers.
I said, for me.
Come on, man.
And I opted not to even say an opposing argument to you. So
Illmatic has 9 producers.
We're going to agree to disagree. At the end of the day, the problem with my production side of his album is he didn't have a sound. He didn't have a sound. What happened was you had a lot of different producers, and to be honest, that's why I skipped certain songs. I don't want to hear that.
It's gonna be
not because the song that may have came after the song I'm skipping was a bad song. I was just saying this sound. I still kind of want to hear something in that sound. That's my personal thing. Just like you think it's the greatest and all this, that's my personal thing about that one.
But just to be fair, it matters. Not one producer produced more than one song.
I'm agreeing to disagree. We're going to move on to the next topic because we're not going to see eye to eye.
Resurgence of West Coast.
You better about to see eye to eye on this.
Resurgence, when I mean about the resurgence of West Coast, the albums that we named and prior to that, on the mainstream level, especially by it being an Interscope album and the Dr. Dre affiliated album and the G-Unit album, which was G-Unit, and anything Shady Aftermath G-Unit was the big thing because they were still reigning from the G-Unit album and as well as Curtis Jackson 50 Cent's first album, and Eminem.
You just call his name.
I like saying Curtis. It's a cool name.
He said Curtis Jackson. So his rap name should be Curtis Jackson.
I mean, I like
he should have rapped with Curtis Jackson.
Yeah, it was cool. Marshall Mathers albums it was still under that Interscope, Shady Aftermath, G-Unit reign, which was a big tag for anybody to have. I think it's probably one of the most strongest, if not the strongest, cosigns in rap, just to have that, because their reign was so hard. I mean, besides Rockefeller, but I mean, how many guys from Rock do? But we're gonna leave that alone.
Interesting.
But the resurgence of West Coast hip hop on the mainstream level, Game really did that. Like, I mean, besides you can take away the already solidified legends at the time, Nate Dogg, Warren G, LBC.
Snoop Dogg. This is what I will say about West
Game
Coast
was
artists.
new and it was dope.
What I will say about West Coast artists is there are very few West Coast artists when they get to the main stage that don't bring the light back to their coast, because there's their sound, their lyrics, the things that just go on the West Coast in general. You know what I'm saying? Just their top. It's just a different world in general. You know what I'm saying? So, especially coming from a city where a lot of people feel like I don't think it is, but a lot of people feel like we different, and I'm like, we just as normal, we just talk funny. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that's how I feel about New Orleans. Like, we just talk funny.
New Orleans is very different from everywhere you've ever been.
I don't know. But anyway, so, I just feel like, it does put a lot of pressure to me. If I was an artist from the West Coast. They, a lot of them do speak about it when they have mixtapes and different songs. They do speak about that type of pressure that it puts on them when they have to be on the main stage. But I will never, that's one thing that I will never take away from Game. He definitely brought the West Coast back. And to be honest with you, for a while, he was really the only one. You know what I'm saying? Whether you like albums that came out after the documentary, whether you like documentary. And it was so funny about Game because the number one thing I always remember everybody saying, whether he was a feature, whether it was his song, or whatever, you'd be like, do you have to name drop every time? But then it became his thing. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those, I love the fact that it was something that people hated so much that they ended up loving it. Because it didn't really bother me. I was like, whatever he usually
keep in mind, it was a style he brought in that may have existed before, but it wasn't shined upon like that. And now everybody to this day does like something like a person. So I'm not saying Game started it.
It was one time.
I'm not gonna say Game started.
I wish I could remember the song. It was one song.
He was one of the contributors.
Like, dude, was all three verses you saying somebody's name? But it's cool. I like when artists, even if I like when they flip it. You know what I'm saying? They do it to the point that you be like, he getting on my nerves, and they be like, I love it. So I mean, I'm not knocking him from doing it at all.
Let's take into account.
But that was one of the things that I do remember. A lot of people, like radio personalities, just people who listen to the album. I just knew, like, friends of mine. There was a lot of people gripe at first with him, like, dang, could he just not? It was never like they didn't like him. They just like, if he could just tone it back a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But that's his thing. And then once you realize what his story is and how he got into rapping, it makes sense for him to do that. You know what I'm saying? So once I really, read up on him and he had all these interviews, I think he might have had like a little special on MTV or something. I remember that. Like on like MTV News when they had that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, once you really got into his story, it kind of fit. It was like a little puzzle. Okay, it makes sense that it makes sense that he came out of the way. It makes sense that he's really going to be the artist to keep the West Coast going, because he was the West Coast. He really was a West Coast dude. Like, he really was an ex-gang member, like a West Coast dude. You couldn't get no more West Coast than him at the time. Like, it just was like, he West Coast. So, I mean, I give him that. That's one thing I agree with Ronny. I give him with the bringing West Coast back to the forefront. I mean, and that's a lot to have to be the only one for so long. You know what I'm saying? And then you the only one, and then you kind of fall off, and they got to fall. You know what I'm saying? Because he had a little decline for a while.
Let's take into effect that it was his first album. His story, his story was based on his street struggle, and as well as him being a real fan. One thing I can say about the names, which I enjoyed, he was really a fan. It's a lot of rappers that rap that are not fans, cannot tell you the history, cannot tell you about great albums, cannot tell you about production, or just that's not really a fan. One thing I got from Game from day one was he was sincerely a fan of hip-hop, and he knew his history, and he knew it, and he put it in his music because that's a part of him. Hip-hop, he's living, breathing hip-hop, part of hip-hop culture. He knows hip-hop, he puts it in his music, and I always appreciate that, because most guys can't tell you anything about.
I just appreciated that he actually was about what he rapped about. Because at the time, there was a lot of people that wasn't out what they was rapping about. You know what I'm saying?
It still is. But
I mean, that's always going to be there. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, that was my appreciation for him. That I felt like when he said certain things, you knew that either he was there when it happened, he did it, or he knew about it. So it made his stuff, like with YG, it kind of makes his stuff a little more, like, okay, you know. What I'm saying? As far as our favorite songs, of course, my favorite song, number one, it's going to be Just Blaze song. Of course. The Church for Thugs. That little known fact about me, or maybe not, it's probably a very known fact about me. If you put Just Blaze on your album, and I see that he's in the credits, that's the first song I listen to, because that's my top favorite producer. So that's was like, I actually went there first and then went back and did like the whole intro thing when I first listened to it. The second one is Where I'm From. Dreams started off as, I've always been a fan of those type of beats. So it just kind of started off as I like the beat, and then I kind of went back and like the song. It's very rare. So this is how much this is how good of a single this was. That I'm going to list a single as a favorite song. Very rare. I love Hated to Love It, and what I love most about Hated to Love It was I love the video. Like the video, it was just something about the video that I was like, yeah, okay, y'all got it, I got it. You know what I'm saying? Now, I will say that I always enjoy game videos for some reason. I don't know what that's about, but
you probably like looking at him. That's what it is.
No, I definitely don't think he's cute. I don't think he's cute nor sexy.
Shots, man, it's hard.
I don't think he's cute nor sexy. Sorry, game.
Hey, my favorite songs, West Side Story. The very first song on there, it kind of set the tone for me. You know, he was just running down, you know, all the motherfuckers who've been patiently waiting, you know what I'm saying? Since the West Coast fell off, the streets been watching. You know, he talked about his resurgence into the game and what he come of and why, kind of even give you a little sense of why he's called the game. Even with the intro, with the man talking and just going right into that. It was like I feel like that was one of a very hard first song. Like, you know, most people either ease into the album. Game usually comes out the gate like punching. So that kind of lets you know how he coming. Start from scratch. I love that song featuring Marsha Ambrose, formerly of Florida Shoe. I guess they back now. I'm not sure, but that album.
That's how my check did one.
They got someone, but we don't get it. Start from scratch. Dope album, giving you a peek into his life story. Very, very good. I like the vocal inflection he used differently on this track to kind of be like he's depressed. He might have sounded like he was crying. You can hear him drinking in the back. It was just very theatric, and I love that about this song. Running featuring Tony Yayo. Like the hook, man, just the soul singing by Deion Jenkins. Like just that verse. And one of the strongest Tony Yayo verses I've known him to have.
Yeah, because Baby,
one of the strongest. Because
Tony can speak. The other one is on the Lloyd Banks album.
Tony goes. It's just like one of those. It's one of those. He cool. You don't miss him, or he just really, really good. That's just hot and cold.
Like I said, the other one is on the Lloyd Banks album. I can say that.
Where I'm from, she also said by Nate Dogg, R.I.P. Nate Dogg, easily one of Guy's best songs ever. Due to maybe just the beat, Nate Dogg, or just what he was talking about. He was just really explaining where I'm from. You got a sense of Compton in the West Coast. And Don't Need Your Love, Faith Evans came through something beautifully. The song was well written. Game gave you another piece of his life. Just more so not just name dropping, people saying, or just rapping for the sake of rapping like I got bars. It kind of gave you a piece of him in those songs. And I always appreciate that when rappers give you a piece of them so you get to know exactly how they are. Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, white boys, Jamaicans, Latin disciples. Thanks, Lord, faith. So all you motherfuckers been patiently waiting since the West Coast fell off the streets. The West Coast never fell off the streets.
Can we say bye like some
bye?
Bye, y'all.
The documentary.
He's really from Baton Rouge. I don't know why that's why he acting ratchet. Cause bye, y'all. It's the Ayo show. He gone. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. See y'all next week.